Welcome to the Nutrimedical Report, and our special guest this hour is Alan Watt. We're going to be joined with Alan in just a moment. We do bring you solutions for health and for life, because we need to deal with the physical challenges to our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our intellectual challenges, and literally the babble or confusion that's out there. And that's why we have experts on like Alan Watt, cutting through the matrix. Welcome to the program, Alan.
It's a pleasure to be on.
Alan, I've got some burning questions, and I'm figuring you're the man to answer them. And I'm sure that lots of people in this ongoing dialogue, you have a mind that cuts through the garbage. I've heard a lot of information lately on Jeff Rentz's show. We've been checking out the research this morning on Ben Fulford, who is a Canadian journalist, has been about 25 years as a Forbes magazine financial journalist, who's literally releasing a ton of information. He got fired from trying to release articles about the kinds of corruption occurring at the global level, because since the Second World War, of course, the British and American Illuminati have controlled or tried to completely control the business there as vassals of the New World Disorder. But there seems to be some very serious splits, and again, if anybody even looks at their Bible or looks at just any natural situation, ultimately there's going to be splits in the house, and the house of cards is about to fall. I'm of the suspicion, having looked at the information that I've seen from Ben Fulford, that there may be some degree of truth to this. Tell me what your analysis is in terms of the break between the so-called Asian Illuminati over this issue of genocide, which is what is planned. I mean, the SARS and the avian flu, which appeared directly under the flight paths of British Airways jets. The very fact that I was received personally the documents in 1997, March 16th, that the Rothschilds funded the actual resurrection of this virus with gene fragments to create a pandemic to kill billions. This is not a joke, and it's not a theory, and I would wish I didn't know this, but I do, and I'm now conveying it at great danger to you listening out there in the audience. This is not a conspiracy theory, but you've got the evidence in terms of the analysis long-standing. What do you think of Ben Fulford's thesis that there is literally a talking discussion now, a threat to these Illuminatis that are planning to stage Armageddon, literally to bathe us through a fire of plagues and war and famine, that's part of their plan to continue to move forward to total control over the populations of Earth?
Well, it is definitely order out of chaos, and so they must create incredible chaos to bring in a completely new way of living. Right. For those who still live. And what we're seeing now, I think, are some of the helpers that have been up near the top, at least on the public level, beginning to see their own demise, because they will no longer be necessary in the next order to come. They won't need these people, these helpers, this upper bureaucracy, and that's where the panic starts first, really. Before it even hits the people, it's those who've been helping them in higher agencies, including the media.
Well, in fact, their greatest danger is that those people that are going to catch on. And I'm here to tell you, I'm one of those they try to recruit into these higher levels, and I'm not going along with the program. And I hope even if you're deep inside the organization, get ready to pull the plug. We'll be back in a moment with lots more with Alan Watt, cuttingthroughthematrix.com. Your questions later on in this hour, 866-582-9933. Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. And Alan, I would like to get back to our original topic. We're talking here about Ben Fulford, and I was listening to the dialogue between Jeff Rentz and Ben Fulford, who is a Canadian journalist who's trained at the University in Tokyo, speaks Japanese, worked for Forbes magazine. And it's a pretty remarkable story. And I've heard various opinions, and again, I try to take them from various stages of analyses. But it's my feeling that there's a lot of division occurring between the various levels right up to the top of the so-called globalist elite. And you can't just call the globalist elite just the Vatican or the Jewish elite or the Chinese elite or the Russians. There's a whole bunch of factions, but they're not exactly happy with each other. And right now, there are various plans to eliminate each other. Do you think there's any validity to Ben Fulford's story?
There's probably something to it, at least we don't even know if it's just for public show.
Right.
We don't know.
We don't know if we're being manipulated, but yeah. What I would say is there is a very high probability that the various factions are deciding to make a lunge for power to get all the chips on the table.
Well, that's a fact. There's no doubt about it that you see, long ago they were recruiting the leaders of even the Far East into their little club. Hirohito of Japan was given a knighthood of the Garter before World War II begun.
Yeah, knighthood of the Garter, yeah. And of course the Black Dragon shoguns in Japan were joined by the Nazi SS and the high-level German Thule Society Illuminati, and they had conjoint meetings. It's interesting, isn't it?
That's right. So they're all set up long ago.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be back in just a moment with Alan Watt Cutting Through the Matrix. Welcome, and we are accepting your calls at 866-582-9933. I'd like to continue with some of our dialogue about Ben Fulford, because this is a big issue. The threat that when I listened to the dialogue with Ben and Jeff Rentz dealt with the issue that the Illuminati were being put on notice that they're not going to be permitted to start Armageddon, literally, which you can see Bush and his cronies trying to start a nuclear war in the Middle East. They stopped the Israelis in the last 6 months twice from going downtown with nuclear bombs on Iran and the Bashir reactors. You see these idiots trying to spread more nuclear reactors, like the one in Japan that's just literally cracked by a large earthquake, which is spreading radiation and killed a number of people and affected 700 that are now probably radioactive. It's a big problem, and we can see the weaponization of our food. It's being done on purpose. They want to control food. They want to control technology. They want to control life extension and other technologies to make sure that we don't get treatment or healing of genetic diseases that predispose us to unwellness. But then they want to have these cybernetically and genetically enhanced super beings only for themselves. This is a very, very evil cabal that we need to stop, and it looks like there is a big split. Tell me your analysis, Alan.
Well, yeah, I mean, even in the science magazines, and these are for the lower echelons of reality they're dished out there, all of that is admitted. The future is being spelled out for the people. The very near future, in fact, where they'll create their special purpose slaves from scratch. They won't need women anymore, by the way. That's on the cards too. And the women have definitely been under attack for a long time.
Well, 97% of the abortions on Earth are against females.
Yes, and also
97% of all abortions are. Yeah.
All the other stuff that they've been taking that causes all side effects and kills them off with cancers and so on. And the hormonal levels of most people today, male and female, have been totally tampered with. Which again Charles Galton Darwin said they would do back in the 1950s, and he was a physicist, and he was loudly applauded by all the elite of UK and America at that time. So they've been doing it. You see, they've actually been doing everything they said they wanted to do, and reduce the population by every and all means possible. That's been happening. Men are becoming more sterile more early. The sperm count is way down, as the United Nations loves to tell us every year. It's down 75% from what it was in 1950s level. Their agenda is well on its way, and we got to stop it all now. And the remedy really is not science to combat it. The remedy is to get them to literally stop it. And we have to find out who all these people, and we need a new system. We can't use the same system that's corrupt.
Well, this, in fact, the word that Ben Fulford said is that they are targeting the top levels, and I tend to feel in my gut that he's probably correct, because I can tell you that the people that I know, some of them pretty high level, they're not exactly happy. In fact, I've talked to people who have relatives and connections that are even inside things like the CFR. They're not happy campers. Some of these middle and upper levels are realizing that they've been sold a bill of goods, that they're actually planned for demolition themselves, besides the World Trade Center.
They've been useful idiots. They've been useful idiots, and well paid, mind you, up until this point.
Right.
But they see the coming where they'll no longer be necessary themselves. They see that their masters almost don't need them anymore.
Right.
And that's when they get edgy.
Well, the masters better be nervous now, because we have your numbers. And there are things that are going to start happening here shortly that are going to take you out if you don't cooperate and stop this insane game of trying to start race-specific viruses, weaponization of our food, the World Trade Organization and the Codex Alimentarius. Aspartame is one of the worst of them all. Depleted uranium is another. Again, these global, it's not open to discussion. I mean, we have so much documentation, we don't need to discuss this anymore. It's not open to someone's opinion. It's just a fact.
The war has been on our whole lives, and most folk didn't know it.
Yeah, and it's a cold nuclear war right now. We have a nuclear war, with the spread of these nuclear reactors that the globalists want to do as the answer for the so-called carbon problem is a nuclear reactor, which of course enriches the treasuries of these globalists while reducing the population because it reduces IQ, fertility, causes genetic damage, and of course they're putting them like crazy in China and Asia because they know they don't want to have a massive population of intelligent people who will have extended lifespans.
The business plan for setting up the nuclear reactors around the Toronto area,
right,
and the Scarborough area, and figured into it by the economists was the fallout on the local population in advance. They had it all worked out of the increases of cancers, what types of cancers would be, and they put it down to acceptable levels for economic purposes.
Well, so they actually have numbers. So when you or your husband or wife or child gets a lymphoma or another cancer, well, you're just a number.
That's right. Another thing is interesting too is that this weekend the HARP did one of their biggest bursts of energy they've ever put out over the weekend, and now we've got that earthquake in Japan. That's quite interesting follow-up.
Well, of course, you know HARP can tune. But just think of the Earth as one of those large crystals and a number of tuning forks. You hit it with the right harmonic frequency, and you can cause what's called a piezoelectric slip threshold. So the tectonic plates will slip past each other when they reach that kind of activation energy.
That's right, and that's all in the charter that they signed at the UN on weather warfare concerning HARP back in the 1970s, that they can do that.
Sure they could. And the thing is, they've said right in the mid-1990s with the Security Council they will use any means whatsoever to have their way.
That's right, that's a fact. That's
yeah.
Right.
In other words, they've decided that
they've got to get through their heads. These characters are not kidding.
Oh yeah. When they say they want to kill 2 billion or 5 billion, they're not kidding. They're going to do it. And the people say to me, Dr. Deagle, why are you still alive? Or you must be crazy. I said, I'm not crazy. I just realized I'm like the guy, I call it the guy at the top of the coconut tree, and I can see the horizon curl because I know a tsunami is coming because the elephants and the dogs and cats have already gone up the side of the hill.
Yep.
And I'm looking out and I see the horizon curl. I'm telling people on the beach trying to put suntan oil on and eating their coconuts and having a nice day in Hawaii eating poi, that they're going to die soon. And they don't listen. And when we're out here, you and I, Alan, and many others, we're bringing this up because it's based on fact. This is not just a recent phenomenon, too. This goes back thousands of years. But it's coming to a culmination now where literally not only humanity, but nothing is going to survive the insanity, the chaos that they're trying to bring on the planet.
That's right. That's right. And it's coming down fast now. And the more, this is a time actually, it's very crucial because the more it becomes exposed to the public, the more they will push, the faster they'll push to panic the public into 1,000 other directions. That's what they've done in the past, and they will step it up this time. And I'm waiting for it. Eventually they'll give us something really big,
well,
just to remind us that we've got to be concerned about what they tell us to be concerned about, and get our minds off telling them to stop doing what they're doing.
Exactly. Here's the scenario, and I'm going to repeat it. The bioweapons, yes, the SARS was made by a consortium of Western, Rothschild-funded corporations. I received the documents March 16, 1997, that the avian flu was being made by the CDC and the World Health Organization to reduce world population by billions. And this is a fact. The depleted uranium and the nuclear war they're trying to start in the Middle East is all part of P2OG and Project for a New American Century. They publish it. It's not we're saying it. They've said it in their own words. That's what's amazing, isn't it, Alan?
It is. It truly is.
Yeah, remarkable. Cutting through the matrix.com. Get these books and materials from Alan. You'll understand what's going on. Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. Well, let's get back to it. Alan, with Ben Fulford's comments, this is pretty dramatic statements on his part. He's literally saying that they're getting ready to stage Armageddon, that they're getting ready. You can see the movement of the USS Enterprise into the Gulf. You can see that they're planning step by step to move forward with their terror campaign to start a plague or plagues. We now have MDR-TB. We've got the avian flu coming in the next probably 6 to 18 months. You can see them spreading the terror over the so-called climate shift, which is, probably galactic and cosmic, but we could probably adapt to anything if we had advance warning. But they're not doing anything to stop any of this. At the same time, they're shipping our business overseas, and they're blowing us back all this pollution from countries where they moved to the slave class of Asia. It's just completely out of control, isn't it?
Well, it is controlled. It's like a controlled chaos.
That's a better way. Control
the Club
chaos.
of Rome back in the 1970s put out their agenda on population reduction, including the United States. They said that the U.S. was living way too high above the rest, and they'd run out of natural resources, etc., etc., and it must be brought down by all means to a much, much lower level. And they also talked about the bringing of population down too by all means possible. So this is just an agenda. We're living through a business plan here, and it's all controlled from the capstone of the pyramid to all these many agencies down below, right down to the populace at the bottom in the wasteland. And this has been on the go and planned long before we were even born. That this would happen. They'll have chaos, plagues, famines, pestilence, warfare, rumors of wars, all the old stuff they've done down through the ages. They're doing all over again. And they've worked in the past, you see, to terrify the public, make them obedient into the new system that always emerges, and that's what they're trying to do this time too. Fear is a tremendous tool to make people quiver and then do exactly as they're told in a completely new system, which this is supposed to be.
Yeah, they're really, I believe they're planning on multiple things. For example, earlier this year, just a few months ago, we had the same corporations, Verint Corporation and others, directly involved in the 7/7 bombing. They just charged about a week ago 4 bombers and put them away in prison. The fact is, their little pop gun backpacks didn't do anything other than create a little puff of smoke. The bombs were underneath the carriages of them, and they were they were British military grade munitions placed under the carriages. It could only be done there by British tube workers and the British Special Forces. This is a fact. It's a technical and a fact. It's not open to discussion or anybody's opinion. It's just the way it is. And the fact is, we know that now, and the same corporations are planning terror activities in America, Canada, and otherwise, so they can bring us to our knees. And we need to wake up and decide, you know, we're not going to take it anymore. We're going to stand up to these characters, and we're going to do whatever we have to do. And I applaud comments by Ben Fulford. Even if I don't understand or believe all of the things, I know that if there's disagreement, you people all the way up to the top of the Illuminati know you've been on the wrong side. We're your buddies. They're trying to use you, abuse you, and dispose of you. And they don't care if you're a billionaire or if you've got fancy yachts or you've got lots of whatever. They're going to yank your chain here real soon if you don't believe that we know what's coming. This is real bad, and that's why when I hear Ben Fulford's comment that the Illuminati have a mark on them right now, they're in big trouble, and we're ticked.
Well, you also know, too, that the next part of the further signing into the unification of the Americas happens in August in Canada and Quebec.
That's right. It's just a month away in Quebec, Canada. They're planning on the next signing, and they're saying, oh, no, we're not doing it. These are terrorists. These are the terrorists.
Also, I mean, the U.S. troops have been allowed to come up for the first time. That's the first big time.
Yeah, you got American troops on Canadian soil. When Canadians can't have fully automatic weapons, we've got Americans, foreign citizens, on Canadian soil, and soon Mexican, Danish, whatever, walking around, or jets doing all kinds of maneuvers on sovereign Canadian soil. It's the same thing in America. Do you want to have former Slovakian Republic people walking around that aren't American citizens with fully automatic weapons and body armor? No.
And there are 3 more signings to go up to the year 2010 for full amalgamation.
Right. So they're doing it all, and they're not even discussing it with the local politicians in the provinces. They've got Tilma. We've had the only party, by the way, in Canada that's talking about this is Connie Fogel, leader of the Canadian Action Party. None of the other ones, the NDP, the Liberals, the Conservatives, the Green Party, none of them are talking about the fact that all these other issues are going to go away if you don't deal with the fact of the North American Union, because environmental issues, civil rights issues, property rights, any kind of local protection against globalist international destroying your environment or anything will completely disappear, so the corporations can do whatever they want at the behest of this global organization, which is just turning the world into a feudal plantation.
It is a feudal system. It's an absolute feudal. It's never gone away, actually. It's always been here in the backgrounds.
Yeah, but they're making it overt now. So tell us your analysis of what we can do to respond to this, Alan, because it's obvious that there is great division occurring within these globalists, and they're ready to do it now. I think between now and 2010, we're in very grave danger. And it's not something you can say, oh, well, there's that wacky Alan Watt, or there's Alex Jones, or there's Deagle out there saying all these things. Look, if you can hear from so many voices, you've got to get a clue and realize we're yelling here to please get out of the burning building, because it is coming down on your head.
Mm-hmm. And of course, as I say, what they've always done in the past is when there's too much being talked about and too much being exposed, they simply give you a massive diversion with another real catastrophe or a threatened one. And it's true, it does work with the public very well. They're immediately diverted.
Well, the Ring of Fire, of course, goes right through Japan, and you can guarantee it with this big HARP test that they did. It's not at all surprising. Rob mentioned this, Rob Schaefer. They did this big HARP test in their antenna system, which they have the Diego Garcia antenna. They've got the antenna up in Alaska, and they've got a mobile one that's on this great big mobile platform out in the Pacific, and they can focus these HARP beams anywhere on Earth.
Yeah.
This is very crazy stuff. We're talking about Star Wars type weaponry where they can cause earthquakes, famines, pestilence, move superstorms. They can do all kinds of horrific things, and they're doing it now. And they have no discussion even with our local or our national governments. They could care less.
Aldous Huxley talked about it in A Brave New World, and in his lectures he talked about the scientific dictatorship. And that's what we're really under now. They've been given authority to rule us by very high science's silent weapons for silent wars. And they're using it all. And the HARP technology also affects the brain mechanism. It can create tiredness, irritability, depression, excitability. Whichever frequency they use will give a change in mood. And so this is all happening now. We're also getting dozed like crazy from the sky. California now, everyone's tired. And same in parts of Europe, even in Ireland. I got a message yesterday from someone. Heavy spraying. They've all got upper respiratory problems.
Well, they're preparing to wipe out their immune system. They're turning the air into a plasma so they can pump frequencies through that can epigenetically change your DNA and your mind, insert into your experience set, affect crops, cause earthquakes, move storms. I mean, this is literally trying to turn, these globalists are trying to assume the rights as gods of this earth. That's the way they're trying to act. They're saying, we are the gods of this earth, and we shall do ours as we please, and because you don't know that we're doing this, you're just simply a subspecies that we can just wipe out or destroy if you think that you're threatening our future. That's the way they act.
We're almost an inconvenience to them now at this particular stage.
Yes.
Where they've decided they don't need us all anymore, you see.
Well, it's very real, and it's not a theory. The materials you can get, 3 amazing ebooks at cuttingthroughthematrix.com. We'll have you back on soon, in the next week or two. Alan, you've done a remarkable analysis, and I guess we better heed Ben Fulford's thing. If you don't accept it totally, realize the New World Order is not exactly a house of cards that is very stable. It is about to fall, and fall very hard, especially if these warnings are real. Thank you, Alan. And thank you for listening, everyone. Do stand up and speak out now, or you will be silenced forever. Take care, everyone.